Who's a CRA? What does CRA stand for? This can trigger an immediate capital gain even if you haven't sold the home. This is going to shock a lot of people.
Even though you bought it together with the legal suite already built in with the house, correct?
We're back for another one. There we go. There you got some good stuff here to talk about today. I've got something that I've got something that's going to upset a lot of people. And no doing of our own. But it's going to affect a lot of people that have detached home. So not so much for condos and townhomes, but it's something I think everybody wants to know because it's something probably a lot of people have really thought about. So we're going to talk about that today. Exciting. Yeah. So, and as you can see, we're clearing our fridge out here because we got two separate drinks. That's good today. I've got White Rock Brewing, North Bluff Lager. What do you got?
Oh, Parallel 49.
Yeah. Well, always a staple in our fridge. It's always, yeah. Parallel 49 is always a staple.
Okay. So there's two things that I think we should talk about today that are going to do very well for everybody, I think, watching, because it's going to affect a lot of people. So I'll save the really big reveal of the concerning one for the end here. But what I do want to share is there was some interesting news in Canadian real estate relatively recently. Now, anybody watching this video or listening to this podcast, they're probably in British Columbia. They're most likely in Lower Mainland. Most likely a lot of them know who we are, right? Which is great. The market's been, how would you describe the market in the last little while?
Like, so you put it politely, abysmal is what I'll say. So just like we go on every single month, what we think is the market value, properties that are below the market value are selling. So there still is product selling. There's still townhomes selling, condo selling. The only thing is, if you have an abundance of condos, you really have to be aggressively priced in order to be the best option. Just like we speak about, if you're in the top 5, you're probably looking good. We'll say that,
right,
anecdotally. You're looking good in the top 5. If you're buried within the first 100, or God forbid you're in the 200 or 300 rank, there's probably not a chance you're probably going to be sitting. So what I'll say is the market is typically slow, but it just feels like it's been more and more slow.
Yeah, we're seeing sales numbers that are more synonymous with like December, right? Like everyone pulling their listings off the market or hanging it up for Christmas and stuff. So things are still selling. It's just, way lower numbers. Like I think last time I looked, the sales for our area were still, in and around like maybe the 30% lower than the 10-year average. Yeah. Which, that's a big deal. More listings than we've had in 30 years. And some of the lowest sales we've had in a really, really long time as well. So anyways, there was some interesting developments in Canadian real estate. So we're not talking about BC real estate necessarily, but Canadian real estate. So what I wanted to share with you is actually information coming out of the Canadian Real Estate Association and out of Toronto. So why? Why does that even matter? Well, the reason is because oftentimes you will see the Vancouver market and the Toronto market largely mirror each other. Would you agree?
Yeah, so it's almost like cousins, if not older brother, younger brother type of market.
Yeah, they tend to follow each other pretty similarly. Like if it's really busy in Toronto, it's really busy in Vancouver. If it's tough in Toronto, it's tough in Vancouver. So Vancouver can't necessarily brag about some of this information here, but what I thought was really interesting was just some of the general stats going on in other areas of the country. So to put it in perspective maybe a little bit more, other areas of the country are doing really well. Like they're very, very busy. Okay. So like some of the problems that we talk about in the real estate market right now are very specific to British Columbia and even more specific to the Lower Mainland than they are Alberta, Saskatchewan, Quebec, a lot of these other provinces, the maritime provinces.
Shout out to Manitoba.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, that's kind of interesting, but year over year. So last month, year over year, the Canadian Real Estate Association reported that sales were up 3.5%. Okay. Coming out of June, 3.5%. Now, last June, the market was starting to soften. So it was starting to go a little bit quieter. And we saw a little bit of a kind of a slow drag down to the end of the year where it popped back up January, February, and then March came and we all know what happened, right? So March of this year, we all know what happened. So sales are up 3.5% year over year. And arguably, the conditions are probably a little bit worse. I mean, interest rates are a little bit lower right now, but arguably like the turmoil and the concern in the market is probably a little bit higher, I would say. So I found that interesting. But here's where I was talking about Toronto. So there's two articles that came out, and one was about Toronto home sales climbing for the third straight month, just because simply buyers were starting to take advantage of the opportunity out there. So same thing that's been happening out here. Prices are down. I actually highlighted it around here. Let me see what it says. So prices are down year over year, 5.6% as of June, at the end of June. Okay, from that time last year. So prices are down. They've got more inventory than they've had in a long time. They've got 34% more inventory. These are very similar numbers to what we're seeing out here. However, for the third month in a row, sales increased. In fact, now I've seen differing numbers on this. I thought I saw one that said sales were up 17.8%, which originally got me interested in this. And I found another one that said 8.1%. But either way, those are both big numbers. Why are sales going up over there? I mean, what makes sense about what would be different in Toronto than British Columbia? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Right.
Stuff the same.
So I guess my question is if that's starting to happen in Toronto, is that something that we should expect in the Lower Mainland?
Mm-hmm.
To be seen, right? But it's pretty interesting. I mean, there was another article that I found too about it's titled "Toronto's ultra luxury real estate market sees a whopping 200% increase in sales year over year." Wow. So the article kind of went on to say that they don't know why, but why is that money? And that's usually when you're looking at ultra luxury, that's what we would call smart money, right? People but they do get rich by accident. Uh, why are they all jumping into the market? So very interesting. So certainly if someone it feels obligated or encouraged to leave a comment on the video or the podcast, what do you think? Right, like the Canadian Real Estate Association, or sorry, this was coming out of the Toronto Real Estate Board, pardon me. He said sales could probably pick up if borrowing costs decrease further and if the U.S. trade war is resolved. I wonder how many people are thinking, look, like we've been living in this world since about March, and it's not going to last forever, and the iron's looking pretty hot. Thus, the saying, strike while the iron's hot.
Sure.
Maybe people are starting to strike. Now, that's in Toronto. I'm not saying it's happening here, but it's pretty interesting, and stats don't lie, right? So I don't know. What do you think?
So is the iron heating up then here? If the iron is hot and ready to strike in Toronto, is our iron being heated up right now? So I think what I'll do from personal experience here, we've chatted about this. I think the rest of summer is going to continue following suit, but I think there may be a fall that might start turning upwards. And I hope so. I really hope so. We've been in this negative market, and just like you said, March has been tough. I'm hoping for a fall market, and I'll say that on camera. I'm hoping for a strong fall market where the iron becomes up.
Well, you and all the home sellers out there, right? All the people looking to get in the market are hoping you're wrong.
Yeah.
And of course, we never know what's going to happen, but it's just certainly interesting that the biggest real estate market in Canada, I actually think Toronto is the biggest real estate market in North America. I might be incorrect on that, but I think that might be true, or at least it's up there. Like Toronto's no joke. Like we're talking like just as big as like some of the other like LA and stuff like that. So when we're talking about one of the biggest markets in North America has been heating up 3 months in a row and had such a significant jump in June. It's pretty interesting, especially when we have a market that follows suit so often. So that's kind of all I'm really saying with that. But I'm curious what other people think about that. Here's where I want to break some eggshells. So okay, I knew this was coming. Well, this is gonna shock a lot of people. This is going to concern a lot of people because it might be too late for them. This is going to probably make the phone ring quite a bit for certified professional accountants, possibly for us, possibly for mortgage brokers, possibly for insurance brokers. And let me tell you where this all kind of came from here, because I got an email from Jimmy, our CPA. Great guy, brilliant guy. And actually, it was from his accounting firm. called Achieve PC. Better get it right. Yeah, Achieve CPAs. Okay. So I got this email and I found it really, really interesting because Ginny and I have talked about this before, but I kind of broke it down in a little bit of a different way. And I thought it was just such good information that I wanted to share it with everybody here. And it's related to secondary suites.
Mm.
And if you're listening to this or you're hearing this and you're thinking, well, I don't have a secondary suite. I want you to think in terms of, well, what if I rented out my property? What might happen? But this is really interesting, and it's gonna be pretty concerning for a lot of people because they are already too far along now, right? Like, there's a lot of people that have a home that have a unauthorized second suite or a secondary suite, or they've got a legal secondary suite. So, I mean, to begin with, why don't we talk about the differences of those? So, legal, approved by the city. It's in the it's in the building plans. It's to code. They've got permits for all that sort of stuff. Municipality knows about it. Some municipalities require a license to have the secondary suite, that sort of thing. It's considered a separate dwelling unit, right? Unauthorized. Why don't you take that one?
Unauthorized is pretty much a suite added to a property that has not had its final building inspection. We can't for sure say that it was done to code. And most likely there are specific aspects about a suite that cannot become a legal suite. So if there's fire separation between dwellings, no separate units, if it doesn't have a washer dryer in it. So a lot of things that the municipality needs to see from a unit in order to then Infor inspect it, grants a license, grants its legal status.
Yeah.
Sometimes you often hear there's more than one unauthorized suites per house. And so you start seeing, let's say a 3-bed chopped up into 2, 3, 1-bed suites. Very problematic. So
Yeah, and it's not uncommon, and I would go as far as to say there's probably more unauthorized suites. Actually, I know there's more. There's many more unauthorized suites than there's legal suites. Most of them, in fact, are likely unauthorized, and a lot of people, and you can give me your perspective on this. You did a very good job on that, by the way. I felt like one of your buyers, and I was like getting educated. It was really good. But a lot of people skip going through the authorization piece. Maybe they bought the home and it was already there. Uh, they don't want to get the permits. They don't want to pay the money. They don't want to do the extra kind of upgrades. And really, typically, when we're talking about permitting it or getting it to a legal status, that's just making sure it's safe. You're meeting the appropriate safety protocols that the municipalities put in place. Maybe there's bylaws and stuff, but we know the province has really kind of shut up, the ability to have secondary suites and properties anyways. But that doesn't make it legal if it's unauthorized. It still can be against code and considered unsafe because maybe you don't have a fire exit in a bedroom other than one door. Maybe there's no window, as an example. Maybe the hood fan doesn't fan out of the property and there's no way of exhausting, the
We're natural gas. Yes, what am I exhausting? What am I trying to say?
So anyways, there's many. You talked about fire separation. Sharing heat sources can be a problem if it's not done properly, right? So there's a lot of stuff sharing heat sources with the main home. So anyway, that's the difference between legal and unauthorized. Okay. So, and there's also, I think this is a misconception where people have what is an unauthorized suite, but the city knows about it. They're paying taxes on it. Those people think that that's okay. There's no problem. That's not true. You're still unauthorized. The city could come knock on your door and say, you got to either, make this up to code and bring it up to, legal standard, what they're called legal standard in their own municipality, or take it out. Now, is that happening a lot these days? Not really. It hasn't happened for a while just because of kind of the housing crunch and whatnot. And, the challenge in finding affordable rentals and places to live. Why does this all matter though? So why am I telling you all this? Okay. The reason this is important is because this article Jimmy sent me.
or Achieve sent me. So who's a CRA? What does CRA stand for? Canadian Revenue Agency.
Yes. So Canada Revenue Agent. Sorry, what is that? That's okay. I could tell you it was exhausting out of a stove.
Or even no. Yeah.
Okay. So CRA. Interesting. Number one, when it comes to a suite and you're making rental income off of it, they don't care if it's legal or not. They don't care. That's totally separate. That's with you and the municipality. They don't care. Okay. If a suite exists and generates rent, CRA sees it as an income producing asset, regardless of whether it's legal or unauthorized. Okay. So I'm going to kind of build a little bit of a story arc here for you. Okay. Rental income equals taxable income. Now, We're going to talk a little bit about like CRA and stuff like that. We are not CPAs. You want to talk to your own CPA about this stuff. I'm just reciting what was out of this article. I want to be very, very clear on that. We're not giving tax advice here. Big disclaimer. But you need to understand this stuff. So I'm just going to kind of read what was said to me. Rental incomes, taxable income. You are supposed to be sharing that information with CRA, right? You're supposed to be taxed on it. Here's the big kicker. Ready for the drum roll? Adding a suite may trigger something called a deemed disposition. Okay, so adding a suite I'm talking about right now. CRA may treat the converted portion of the home. So let's say you got like a typical old BC box and you've converted the basement to a suite. They may treat the converted portion as if it was sold to yourself at market value when it starts generating income. So you put a suite in your home 3 years ago, as an example, started generating income. That is now, according to this article, a deemed disposition of the property, meaning you sold it to yourself 3 years ago, and it is now an income generating unit. Okay. Why does that matter? This can trigger an immediate capital gain. And just because you got through the tax year 3 years ago doesn't mean that you've skipped this, right? Doesn't mean that you've gotten away with it by any means. This can trigger an immediate capital gain even if you haven't sold the home. Okay. You can avoid this with something called, actually, I'm not even going to get into that. Talk to your CPA.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to talk to you about how to avoid it. Okay. Park smart. So this is for people that maybe own a home that have been renting out the suite. It's been there ever since they bought it. Okay. Or they've added a suite since they've been there. What about a home that you bought that has a legal suite? Very, very interesting. CRA may treat the main home and the suite as two separate units for tax purposes. Think about that. Let's say $2 million house, $1.5 million house, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And how they calculate this, I don't know. But let's say it's 15 or 20% of the house that is a suite. You got 2 units there. So 20% of your gains in that property, since it's been operating as a suite, might be taxable.
Even though you bought it together with the legal suite already built in with the house.
Correct. Okay. Let's keep going. If you rent out the suite, that portion likely won't qualify for the principal residence exemption. You could owe capital gains on the suite portion when you sell the property. Okay. So to claim the full principal residence exemption, so when you sell your home, to make sure that you're not paying capital gains, the entire property must be ordinarily inhabited by you or your family. If the suite has its own separate entrance, kitchen, bathroom, and is rented, it's likely considered a separate dwelling. Okay. If it's used for family, no rent collected, it gets a little stickier, right? But you might need to prove that to CRA. And CRA doesn't argue with people. They tell you what they think, and then it's your job to prove them wrong, right? Okay. CRA will look at the structure and the function of the property, meaning if there's shared utilities, shared entrances, shared mailbox, that might suggest that the home is integrated with the primary residence, therefore not separate unit. However, full separation, CRA likely sees 2 separate dwellings, therefore changing your tax exposure when you sell. How many people is that going to catch off guard?
Very.
Key takeaway. Suites can bring in passive income or add value, but they may reduce your tax exemption and trigger capital gains. Always consult your CPA before renting out a suite in your home because you don't want to necessarily have that deemed disposition, or before you build a suite. Very, very interesting. Don't assume the tax man will treat the whole house as a principal residence just because you live upstairs.
You just hit a buzzword, capital gains. That's been everywhere lately, especially with all of the new flipping taxes. So that's going to be very interesting. Just see how it plays.
Well, the reason I find that so interesting is like when you've got a government, and this isn't any shot at the government by any means, but when you got a government that's looking for money, they need to get it from every source that is reasonable to do so with. You got people with suites out there. You got many people with suites out there. And I would suggest many people with suites out there are not reporting their rental income. How easy is it to find out a house has a suite though? Like really? Like it's not difficult.
right? You can easily go and see.
You could easily, yeah. And I mean, all the information online now about properties and whatnot, and a lot of people are actually paying directly to their municipalities because they're paying the extra for the garbage collection and water and schools and all that sort of stuff that they have to pay for. How easy would it be for the CRA to start talking to municipalities and collecting that information? It's pretty wild, right? So you got someone, let's say, and I mean, the old BC box as an example, built in the 80s or maybe even the late 70s. Let's say there's been a suite in there since the year 2000. Somebody picked up that house in 2005 and has owned it for 20 years, and they've made massive, massive money on it in terms of capital growth. When they sell it, the BC box example, the whole downstairs, let's say 40% of the house might have capital gains on it. It's unreal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So CRA they could effectively start cracking down on this and really, really paying attention, and it might catch a lot of people off guard. So the key is, the key takeaway from all of this is always get the right professional advice. Always, 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 always. Don't cheap out. Don't not call your accountant because you think you know it all. Don't go to Chat GPT and get Chat GPT's opinion. As a subject matter expert on real estate, I go in there sometimes to confirm what I know, just to make sure I'm not off course. And it'll say something, it'll spit something back to me. I'll look at it and I'll go, I don't think that's right. And they'll start digging into, whatever the Strat Property Act and looking for exactly the excerpt of what I'm looking for. And I'm like, you're wrong. And then it'll go, oh yeah, you're right.
Right.
I should have said that.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that's scary. Right. So always go directly to the experts.
Mm-hmm.
When you're buying a home, when you're selling a home, you should be talking to your accountant. You should be talking to your lawyer. You should be talking to your mortgage broker. You should be talking to your real estate professional and bring them in early. Like, don't just spring these things on them, right? Let them know what conversations are going on so they can guide you appropriately. So anyways, I thought that was
Good excerpt.
wildly interesting. And sorry for anybody who's watching this or listening to this that, just got a big surprise. But that's, it's your responsibility as a taxpayer to understand how these systems work. Right? So anyways, that's my, so reach out to your CPA ASAP. Yes.
There you go. Perfect. Okay. What do you got for stats?
Let's tell the good people about what's happening locally.
Lovely. Well, I know you tune into these videos as well.
These videos are taking off, man. That's right. The viewership is growing and growing and growing, and the podcast is growing and growing, which is a ton of fun. So, keep tuning in and we'll try to keep providing really good value.
That's right now. So let's start condos in 3 months. So a lot of negatives across both boards here, both the 3 months and the 1 month, but specifically
3 months and 12 months.
yes.
Yeah. What did I say?
So apartments in the Lower Mainland down 2.6 and down 2.7 in the Fraser Valley. So we're just under 3% on the negative there. Townhomes are doing better. They are performing better. So in the Lower Mainland in the last 3 months, it was minus 1.0, and in the Fraser Valley minus 1.1. So we're just at about minus 1% for those.
I've been telling a lot of people that have been reaching out to us wanting to buy lately that the townhouse market is the missing middle, right? It's still affordable.
Yep.
It still gives the space that those millennial families need who are starting to have kids or have kids that, like 1-2 bedroom condos aren't cut in anymore. So that's going to be the market for sure. That's going to be the market to watch.
Yeah, 3 or 4 beds definitely on the, like, I'm speaking from experience, but we live in a 2-bed den, and I think if we would have bought the 3-bed, we would have probably future-proofed ourselves for at least 5 or 6 years when the second kid goes, right? So,
yeah, unless you want to sleep in the den.
yeah, I blame my thing. We'll see. Yeah, that's exactly it. And then to round off detached of the Lower Mainland, minus 2.4 and minus 3.1 in the Fraser Valley. So still in the negatives, but to be expected. That's kind of how we felt anecdotally and also now statistically as well.
Well, there was a big shakeup in the economy 3 months ago, right? So clearly not, is that coming to an end? Time will tell, but it seems like the market might start to, be feeling that way a little bit. But, how long do people bury their heads in the sand and say, I'm not buying a house, right?
You bet. And then just as you were speaking about earlier in the podcast, last June, we started to see it kind of decline. So this rate, the 1 year change for that. So apartments, Lower Mainland minus 3.4, and then the Fraser Valley minus 4.5. So we're now seeing over the 4 numbers in the Fraser Valley down.
Yeah. I think the market was just about peaked probably at about May, and then kind of did a slow decline after that. That's it.
Going in townhomes, minus 2.8% in the Lower Mainland, minus 3.1 in the Fraser Valley, and detached homes, minus 3.4% in the Lower Mainland, and then minus 4.6 for the Fraser Valley. So, sure. Yeah, we're still in negatives, but I don't know. We'll see what happens, man. But we'll can't stay like this forever.
No, well, it could, yeah, knock on wood, I guess. But,
it's certainly interesting what's happening in Toronto. And actually markets that have been crazy on fire, like in Alberta, a lot of them have slowed off quite a bit too. So, I mean, time will tell as it always does. But, people got the information now. If they've got questions about their own unique situation, obviously reach out to us. We'll let you know what's going on. Make sure you know what's happening in the micro markets because all markets are different too. Like your example about townhomes. Townhomes could be wildly busy in, let's say, I don't know, Cloverdale, which actually they are. They're busier in Cloverdale. Yeah. Whereas in like the Grandview neighborhood of South Surrey, they're really quite slow right now. So just depends where you are.
That's right. And you're actually seeing positive percentages within Mission as well, too. And that's in the townhomes and the detached market.
So if you're buying in Mission, you better get them because it's getting more expensive every day.
There you go. We're starting around upwards, but yeah, man. I'm looking for. I hope that the market starts going upwards in the fall, at least for sellers and for the majority, we'll say.
Yeah, well, the market likes certainty. Hopefully, there's more certainty on the way pretty soon. And if not, I think even certainty is developed over time. So, people are just going to become more comfortable with the current situation.
Yep.
Our, economy is going to do what it's going to do. And we've had a couple months now of living in this world. And if nothing changes, then at least we kind of, have an idea of what it looks like. And people will start to get comfortable with that and likely, start to make different decisions unless they want to.
not do, it's your life. You stay where you want. That's the man. Make sure you do what you want. So, anyways, this is a lot of fun, very interesting one. Yep. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel or the podcast, make sure you do so, and you'll get these updates among some other really good stuff regarding real estate news or updates about the areas, the stuff that
For sure. And we're posting 2-3 times a week. What are we at now?
Oh, geez.
2 times a
the
week.
amount of time I spend in front of a camera is scary.
Yeah. You will get these each month, which is good. Comes with stats, comes with kind of real estate of the day and, or I guess of the month. So subscribe.
There you go. All right. We'll see you next month.
All right, YouTube, bud. Cheers. See you.